Mike got drunk one night and got a girl pregnant. By the time I found out, the girl was already 6 months along. He said if we kept the child, we could still go back to how things were. I shook my head and asked him stubbornly, between me and this child, who do you choose? That day, he was silent for a long time and couldn't give me an answer. But after I disappeared, he regretted it. Married to Mike for 5 years, I never imagined we would end like this. Outside the hospital, Mike carefully helped a young, beautiful girl down the steps. I stood not far away, locking eyes with Mike, whose face was full of tenderness. His gaze flickered and he stiffly avoided my eyes. The heavily pregnant girl beside him looked over at me too, tears instantly welling up in her eyes. After safely helping the girl into the car and giving her a few careful instructions, Mike finally walked over to me. His steps were calm and steady, completely devoid of the panic he showed when I caught him off guard. "Why are you at the hospital?" "Not feeling well," he said with concern, reaching out to touch my forehead. I pulled away. "Who is she?" Mike didn't answer my question but pulled me into his arms to comfort me. "She's not important. I'll explain everything when we get back, okay?" His gentle voice finally broke through my defenses, and tears began to fall. I stubbornly lifted my head, searching for an answer. As long as he said it, I would believe him. Mike sighed softly, then carefully wiped the tears from the corner of my eyes. "The child is mine." Tears clung to my face, and I felt as if I had forgotten how to breathe. My lips were bitten red, and I broke free from his embrace, stepping back with each step. At that moment, Mike finally showed some real anger. He pulled me close again, looking at me with pain. "Betty, you can blame me, but you can't torture yourself." I didn't understand why he did such a thing, yet still showed me a side that loved me. In our silent standoff, the girl from the car got out. "Go back," Mike said coldly, without a trace of warmth. The girl looked at the man timidly but didn't leave, her eyes held a newfound resolve. "Betty, Mike and I aren't what you think. This child was an accident." She gave a bitter smile. "If I could, I wouldn't want him more than anyone else." My vision blurred, unable to clearly see the expression on the man's face. But knowing him well, I could still feel that the coldness he had at the start was long gone. "Enough, stop talking." Jealousy and resentment flooded my heart, and I broke down, shouting. The girl trembled with fear, nearly falling, but was quickly caught in the man's arms. I stared blankly at the scene, a thought flashing through my mind. Suddenly, I rushed toward them. Just as I was about to touch the girl's swollen belly, a strong force pushed me away. I sat on the ground, raising my scraped palm, and gave a bitter smile. Mike looked at the outstretched hand in disbelief, stunned. That day, Mike left the girl who was 6 months pregnant and took me home. But I knew there was no future for him and me anymore. Back home, Mike gave me an explanation. I sat on the bed, motionless for a long time. Meanwhile, he stood on the balcony of my room, smoking through the entire night. I knew he was using self-inflicted pain to make me feel sorry. When it came to me, he always knew where my weakness lay. Dawn was breaking as Mike turned and went inside, coming to my side. "Hungry? What do you want to eat?" "I'll make it," I called out to him in a hoarse voice. "Mike, we need to talk." He paused in his steps, not turning back for a long time. I knew he understood my personality. I cared deeply about this kind of thing. Very deeply. Even though he was drunk that day and accidentally had contact with that girl, I could never forgive it. So, Mike kept this matter from me. But no one expected that the stranger, who was just a fleeting acquaintance to him, was pregnant. Because of her special condition, she couldn't terminate the pregnancy. That's how things ended up like this today. Mike still left, he didn't dare face what I was about to say next. I knew he loved me. If he didn't, we wouldn't have been in a long-term relationship for so many years. If he didn't, he wouldn't have spoiled me into someone who could throw tantrums and cry at the slightest provocation. Mike didn't come back for the entire following week. Yet every day, he meticulously asked the housekeeper how I was doing. The housekeeper advised me, "Madam, you and your husband are the most loving couple I've ever seen. If there's anything, just talk it out. Your husband has lost a lot of weight recently." The housekeeper had been with my family for many years and had never seen Mike and me argue even once. Even my mother-in-law, who was once dissatisfied with me, gradually came to accept me because Mike and I lived happily together. The phone rang. It was Mike calling. "Sister-in-law, Mike's had too much to drink. Can you come pick him up? Don't bother with him." After hanging up, the frustration in my heart only grew stronger. In my mind, I kept recalling the silhouette of Mike as he left, as if it had bent slightly. I still couldn't bring myself to leave him there alone. After a moment of struggle, I picked up the car keys. Taking big strides, I walked out. The private room door was ajar. I stood outside without going in. Mike was indeed drunk, sprawled out with limbs spread, leaning on the sofa without any dignity. In front of him stood a heavily pregnant girl. Mike's friend looked a bit embarrassed. "Deb, my sister-in-law refused to come, and Mike wouldn't leave, so I had no choice but to call you," the girl said with a gentle smile, helping Mike raise one of his arms. He suddenly pushed her away. A few startled cries snapped Mike out of his drunken state. He looked at the woman before him, wearing a smile more pitiful than tears. "Deb, it's all because of you. Betty doesn't want me anymore." Mike kept repeating the same words, then started searching for alcohol everywhere again. No one could stop him as he grabbed the bottle and drank recklessly, gulp after gulp. Suddenly, Deb snatched the bottle from the man's hand and smashed it violently on the ground. The private room fell silent instantly. Even Mike, who had been acting wildly drunk just moments ago, stared at her in stunned silence. "Mike, your loud tantrum will scare our child. Get up, I'm tired, take me home." Mike, who was almost like a kingmaker in this place, had never been ordered around like this except by me. Everyone thought he was angry and didn't dare to breathe loudly. But in this stifling atmosphere, Mike said nothing. He slowly stood up, picked up his clothes, and silently followed Deb out. They left together. I hid in the corner, watching a man and a woman ahead. Suddenly, I smiled. Yet, there was a bitter edge to that smile. I followed their taxi to a high-end residential complex and saw Mike get out and go upstairs with the girl. A light flickered on somewhere in the towering building. I sat in the car all night, watching, but Mike never came out. At 7 in the morning, he came back and carrying breakfast. I looked at that all-too-familiar figure. He left quietly, alone. I called out to Mike but didn't mention the divorce. I looked at the man who had lost weight, then quickly looked away. "I didn't come to pick you up last night. Where did you stay?" Mike's fingers trembled slightly. After a moment, he said, "I stayed at the company." I couldn't quite put into words what I was feeling. There wasn't much bitterness. But there was a lot of disappointment. When did Mike learn to lie to me? The person who once promised to be honest with me for a lifetime had changed. I didn't expose him, because to me, it no longer mattered. Her, for how many months? Mike's voice faltered for a few seconds, as if he couldn't bear to hurt me. Almost 7 months. After saying that, he knelt on one knee before me, burying his head deep in my lap. Tears soaked my skirt. "Betty, I was wrong, please don't leave me." As far as I could remember, Mike had never cried before. Now, he was crying fiercely. Seeing him like this, my heart ached too. But I knew that at this moment, I couldn't soften. Arrange for me to meet that girl. We chose to meet at Deb's house. Mike waited for me outside the door. Deb gently stroked her lower belly, her eyes full of anticipation for the child. That night, the lights were off in the room, and I was truly terrified. But the next day, when I saw Mike lying beside me, I actually felt a moment of relief. As Deb spoke, she began to smile. She looked up at me, still wearing that gentle and beautiful expression. "Betty, now that Mike and I's child is about to be born, why don't you just let us be?" With Mike absent, the girl before me seemed like a different person. Actually, I wasn't too surprised. Because the night I went looking for Mike, Deb had glanced at me from behind the door. I knew then that she had already seen me. She slowly stood up and pushed open the tightly closed door. Inside was a cozy nursery. Everything in here was hand-picked by Mike, and he decorated the room himself. He does have hopes for this child. I really wanted to maintain the last shred of my composure in front of Deb, who was flaunting Mike's fatherly love to me. But I still got provoked by her. It turned out that Mike had expectations for this child too. He wasn't indifferent after all. It felt as if all the strength in my body was drained away. I braced myself on the dining table with one hand and knocked over a glass of water. The crisp clinking sound struck my chest, shattering it into cracks. Mike heard the noise and saw me swaying, while Deb lay on the floor crying out in pain. That day, I will never forget that Mike's first choice was no longer me. Deb gave me a triumphant smile, convinced she had won. As she brushed past me, Mike hesitated for just a moment. In the end, he stepped over me and carried Deb to the hospital. The moment he left, Mike didn't look at me. I stood there for a long time, slowly coming to terms with the fact that he had abandoned me. I followed them to the hospital, and by the time we arrived, his parents had also shown up. It turned out they had known all along, just kept it from me. When they saw me approach, his mother slapped me across the face. "If anything happens to my grandson, just wait and see how I settle the score with you." Mike immediately stepped in front of me, pulling me behind him. Seeing this, his mother grew even angrier. "Mike, it's fine for you to protect her usually, but now she's trying to harm your son." Mike smiled, his voice tinged with suppressed defiance. "So what? If he's gone, he's gone. If they hadn't secretly left this child behind him, how could Betty have been so heartbroken?" No one knew that when he saw Deb fall, his first reaction was actually happiness. He felt some regret over this unexpected turn of events. The doctor came out of the ward and said the child was saved. Mike's parents hurried inside, fussing over Deb with concern. But Deb kept looking at Mike standing at the door, pitiful and vulnerable. She dared to plot against me. How could I possibly let her succeed? I showed him my swollen left cheek to make him feel sorry for me and said to Mike, "I don't want to stay here anymore." I took Mike away with me. As I left, I glanced back at Deb lying in the hospital bed and returned her the same smile. At least for now, Mike still favored me. But even this favor, I no longer wanted. While Mike thought I had accepted the child, I had already begun preparing to leave. I packed my things and got the divorce papers ready. Just waiting for the day to leave. That's right, I will leave on the day Deb gives birth. Didn't she want me to make it easier for their little family of 3? Then I'll fulfill that wish for her. Lately, I've been feeling a dull discomfort in my lower abdomen. I went to the hospital that day for a checkup, but unexpectedly ran into them. I re-registered and had the examination done. The moment I got the results, tears of laughter welled up in my eyes. Mike and I had been trying for a child for 5 years, but never succeeded. Now, this child seems to have come at the wrong time. Holding the pregnancy certificate in my hand, I walked dazedly through the hospital, unsure how to face the little life growing inside me. I know I should terminate it, but I can't bear to. This decision is even harder to let go of than giving up on Mike. Until I looked up and saw Mike coming out of the prenatal checkup with Deb. These days, none of us mentioned Deb anymore. He thought my silence was an unspoken acceptance of the situation. "Mike, our child is very healthy, I'm so happy." Mike's voice betrayed no emotion, but the slight lift of his eyebrows revealed his good mood. "Yeah, you've done a great job raising him." As they talked about the child, neither noticed that I had stopped right in front of them. The moment Mike saw me, he immediately let go of Deb's hand and stepped away from her. After a silent pause, I was the first to speak. "What a coincidence. You two keep busy, I'll be going now." Mike hurriedly grabbed me, unwilling to let me leave. "Betty, let me explain to you." I calmly released him, without a trace of anger. "I'm not mad. This child is your responsibility, I understand." As the words fell, Deb's eyes suddenly lit up. Betty, do you really agree to keep this child? Since the last time we tore each other apart, I didn't want to show her any kindness. Deb's baby is due in a few days. Does it even matter if I disagree? The woman immediately panicked, her voice trembling with tears. I was forced. Saying this now was pointless. I didn't let Mike follow, and I turned back to the doctor. Just moments ago, someone had already made the decision for me. On the day Deb gave birth, Mike was called away at 4 in the morning. As he left, he whispered close to my ear, "Betty, once this child is born, can we go back to how we were before?" He knew I wasn't asleep. He also knew there was a stranger, a child, between us now, and things were no longer the same. I kept my eyes tightly shut, giving him no response. But just as he was about to leave the room, I suddenly called out to him. I asked insistently, "Mike, between me and this child, who do you choose?" Seeing the shock and hesitation on his face, I shook my head and urged him to go. Watching me lie back down once again, Mike softly said, "Wait for me to come back, I'll fix everything." But I didn't need him to fix anything, I was going to do it myself. After he left, I took out a divorce agreement and a USB drive and placed them on the bedside table. Without any farewell, I left the home I had once cherished so deeply. With 2 days left before my flight took off, I returned to my hometown. Since marrying Mike, I had never gone back. The once small bungalow had been built up into a 2-story house, standing out brightly among the cluster of homes. Someone with sharp eyes spotted me and shouted, "That eldest daughter who married into the Fu family is back." In less than a minute, a crowd had already gathered around me. My parents also came out of the house. Seeing my empty hands, the smiles at the corners of their mouths froze. They forced smiles as they welcomed me inside, and as soon as the door closed, my mother gave me a harsh pinch on the waist. "You useless girl, you come back and don't even think to bring us anything. We've raised you for nothing. I'm divorced. Mike won't be giving you any more money from now on." The whole family looked like they were facing an enemy, their faces all changed. "Look, these parents and siblings who suck blood by selling their daughters are my family. When they found out I left the marriage with nothing, not a single cent, they ruthlessly kicked me out." Standing outside the locked gate, I wasn't sad at all. In front of this family, I should be grateful to Mike, he shielded me from the storms. He gave me 5 years of peaceful days. But now that we have separated, I don't want them to disturb his new life anymore. Having dealt with this trouble, I boarded the plane without any hesitation. Leaving alone the city where I had lived for so many years. Deb gave birth to an 8-pound boy, Mike had a son. And at this moment, I was lost deep in memories on the plane, recalling the time when Mike and I first got together. That year, my family told me that Grandpa was sick and needed medicine. They had no money, and if I didn't provide it, they wouldn't treat Grandpa. At that time, I handed over all the money I had saved, not even leaving enough for a meal. Before I got paid next month, I survived on instant noodles for an entire month. Later, Mike found out. He, a rich young master born with a silver spoon in his mouth, had never known what it was like to be short of money. His eyes reddened, and in a hoarse voice, he asked me, "Why didn't you tell me?" Without giving me a chance to answer, he pulled me into a tight embrace, his tone full of concern for me. "Don't forget, you still have me." That day, I met the first person in over 20 years I could rely on. In the 5 years after we married, Mike never broke his word. Since Grandpa passed away, Mike has kept all those messy family members away from me. If you ask whether Mike treats me well, my answer is, very well. At least before the matter with Deb, he was a very good husband. But in life, love alone isn't enough to last a lifetime. Even if I don't leave this time, that child will still be a thorn in my heart. Left lodged there too long, it will inevitably rot away. I want our beautiful memories to stay right here. To remain at this moment when we still love each other. After the plane landed, I looked up at the clear blue sky. From then on, he and I, vast skies and wide seas, each going our separate ways in peace. The moment the child was born, Mike showed a flicker of surprise. This was the child he had hoped for, his own blood, his son. So, caught up in his joy, he generously stayed with Deb at the hospital for one night. That night, he didn't go home. He wanted to arrange everything for Deb and her child, so he wouldn't have to contact them anymore. He and Betty could go back to the way they used to be, loving and close. But Betty didn't wait for him, she disappeared on her own. When the aunt came to the hospital looking for him, Mike was carefully holding the child that belonged to him. The moment he heard that Betty had left, Mike didn't get up to find her. He just closed his eyes deeply. Because he knew this time, Betty wouldn't forgive him. The divorce agreement on the bedside table in the bedroom, Mike didn't sign it. He watched the video on the USB drive. These two things together mocked his foolish actions from the past. At the end of the video was a message Betty recorded for him. After listening, Mike began to weep uncontrollably. He knew he was wrong, terribly wrong. It turned out Betty knew everything. Mike, after all these years of marriage, not giving you a child is my responsibility. I know how much you want a child of your own. No matter what reason you had for keeping this child back then, it no longer matters. Let's part ways amicably. Betty saw through the calculation in his heart, he wanted to keep the child. For someone as self-centered as him, he only cared about those important to him. What did others matter? As long as he didn't want it, the child would never have a chance to be born. It was his tacit consent that allowed Deb's belly to grow. It was his genuine joy that gave Deb the opportunity to hurt the one he loved. Mike wanted to have it both ways, but in the end, he lost the person he cherished most. Mike, the baby has been born already, what are you trying to do now? His mother glared furiously at Mike, who was about to give away her newborn grandson, utterly enraged. Without this child, Betty will never forgive me. Mike had made up his mind, he didn't want the child for even a second. He had already found a family to take the baby, and he would pay them well, he wouldn't shortchange the child. Seeing Mike so determined, his mother begged tearfully. Mike, this is your own son. Can you really bear to give him up? I know you're heartbroken over Betty divorcing you, but no matter what you do, she won't come back. To me, no one is more important than Betty. Mom, I regret it. Mike's heart trembled, swallowing his bitterness, he resolutely took the 1-month-old baby away. This incident caused quite a stir in their circle and was talked about for a long time. Some say Mike is ruthless, others say he's hopelessly devoted. Either way, his family has been completely made a joke of. After 6 months, Mike tracked down my address. When he tried to come find me, his cousin Cersei stopped him. His cousin, who was my senior in college, has been taking care of me while I'm abroad. Brother, don't come. Betty said if you show up, she'll leave. We all saw how much you liked Betty back then. How could you be so confused about this? Faced with his cousin's questioning, Mike couldn't say a word. Time wouldn't give him a second chance. After a long pause, Mike whispered, "How is she?" "She's fine, eating and sleeping well, and has put on quite a bit of weight." Mike forced a bitter smile, revealing his sharp chin. "That's good, take good care of her." After hanging up, the joy of having found her began to slowly spread. He laughed out loud in the dimly lit house. Found her, how wonderful. On the other side, Cersei put down the phone with a scowl, cursing a few choice words. I watched the still angry woman with amusement and tried to soothe her. "I don't care anymore, why are you still upset? That's not the same. You and my brother were so in love back then, how did it come to this?" Everyone who knew about Mike and me breaking up felt sorry for us. But when fate runs out, you just can't keep going. Cersei is my best friend, some things only she can ask me. She fixed her gaze on my belly. "Betty, what are you planning to do with this child? Aren't you going to let my brother know?" I caressed the child who belonged to me alone, my eyes full of tenderness. I didn't abort the child back then. At the very last moment, I regretted it. I had lost my family, lost Mike, and I didn't want to spend the rest of my life all alone. He doesn't have a father, only a mother. A month later, I gave birth to a girl, the person in this world I cherish most. I worked while raising my daughter, and life was blissfully happy. Back then, I invested my skills in Cersei's company, and now the company is doing very well. I have enough means to give my daughter a comfortable life. Unconsciously, my daughter turned 5. Under Cersei's threat, Mike didn't dare to come looking for me. But every month, he would ask Cersei about my situation. Cersei asked me if she should tell him. I nodded. Aside from my daughter's existence, there was nothing I couldn't share. Due to the company's business relocation, Cersei's company had to move back to the mainland. This time, she was going back to get married. Naturally, I had to go with her to attend her wedding. Because my daughter developed late and was smaller than children her age, and didn't look anything like Mike. Besides, he already had a son. So, he probably didn't care about the daughter at all. On the day we returned to the country, Cersei had some last-minute work, so she had her boyfriend take us back first. When the plane landed, Mike was waiting outside to pick me up. Since Cersei always loved coming to my house for meals, her boyfriend was also very familiar with us. When my daughter was holding his hand, it led Mike to misunderstand. A sharp pain welled up in Mike's chest, and his throat felt as if something was blocking it, making it hard for him to breathe. When he saw us approaching, he mustered all his strength to utter a few words. You're back?" I gave a soft hum in response, saying nothing more. With the passage of time, all those loves and passions had long since faded. The moment I saw Mike today, I knew I had already stepped out of the past. As we left the airport, Mike offered to see me off. Cersei's boyfriend, sensing that Mike might have misunderstood our relationship, didn't try to explain. Instead, he smiled and declined politely. "No trouble, we have a car." After getting in, Mike stood there, watching the car as it drove away. My daughter asked me, "Mom, who is that strange man? He looked like he was about to cry." "Do grown-ups cry too?" I gently stroked her soft hair without turning back to look. "Uncle is a friend of Mom's, maybe the wind got into his eyes," Cersei said after a while, calling me to say that Mike had asked about his daughter. As we had agreed, I told him the daughter was a child I had adopted. Mike believed it. Cersei returned a few days later than us, and as soon as she got back, she was busy preparing for the wedding. She handed over many company matters to me. After playing with my daughter for a few days, I started to be busy with work every day. I don't know where Mike found out my address, but these days his car often parks downstairs at my place. It stays there the whole night. I pretended not to notice and ignored it. A person who was almost a stranger no longer affected me. On Cersei's wedding day, I brought my daughter along and ran into Mike and his parents. Cersei was Mike's cousin, and many people in their circle knew me. Seeing me with a child, those people whispered among themselves. Mike deliberately shielded me from those scrutinizing gazes, while also blocking Mike's mother's resentful looks directed at me. Naturally, those who didn't get along with Mike's mother weren't about to miss this opportunity. Someone asked me, "This child of yours isn't Mike's, is she?" I didn't care how they looked at me or what they said, but if they called her my daughter, I couldn't stand it. I smiled at the woman who, though clearly a year younger than Mike's mother, had a face full of wrinkles. "You're the truly blessed one, that's what having a house full of children and grandchildren really means." The woman's husband's 7th son had just been acknowledged from outside and was only 10 years old. The woman awkwardly fell silent. After this incident, I grew worried that my daughter might be recognized by them. So I deliberately kept shielding her the entire time. The plan was finished, and I left early with my daughter. But unexpectedly, I turned around and lost sight of her. When I looked again, my daughter had already run up to Mike's mother, tilting her chin up. "Grandma, you're not allowed to keep glaring at my mom." Mike's mother was stunned for a long moment, disbelief flashing across her face. She trembled as she reached out and touched my daughter's cheek. "Tell Grandma, how old are you?" My daughter held up 4 fingers and, repeating what I had taught her, said, "I'm 4 years old this year." Mike's mother's eyes instantly grew dim and lifeless, murmuring, "Too much alike, really too much alike." This little girl before her was exactly the same as she had been as a child. My heart pounded wildly. Mike's mother's expression was clearly abnormal, and I was afraid she might see through something. I hurried over to my daughter's side, wanting to take her away. At that moment, a little boy of about 5 or 6 suddenly shouted, "Liar, didn't you just tell me you were 5?" My daughter looked up at me, her face turning bright red, a little embarrassed. "Mom, I forgot just now." I closed my eyes, forced to accept reality. Fortunately, Mike still had a son. No one could take my daughter away from me. Meanwhile, Cersei was pulled aside for questioning. She glanced at me. I nodded to her. After the wedding, my daughter and I followed Mike's mother back home. In the car, Mike's mother held my daughter tightly, overjoyed. Mike's father also showed a rare smile. The last to enter the house was Mike, the happiest of all, his eyes never leaving my daughter. My daughter was taken out to play by the nanny before I even spoke. "She is mine alone, there's no way I'm handing her over to you." Seeing my firm stance, Mike's mother also became very assertive. "She is our granddaughter. I can't let you take her away. How much do you want? Just name a price." Since there was no point in continuing the discussion, I grabbed my bag and was about to leave. But Mike blocked the door. "You've raised our daughter well, but my mother's word isn't final." At that moment, I felt Mike was completely exhilarated, several times gentler than usual. Yet no matter what, hearing him say something like that softened my attitude toward him a little. "You already have a son, and you already have a grandson. Why do you have to fight me for my daughter?" But as soon as I said this, the expressions on Mike and his parents' faces all changed. Mike's expression grew very faint, so faint it was as if he was talking about something unrelated to him. Yet his parents wore looks of disdain. I even doubted my own eyes. After all, that was the grandson they had longed for. That question was answered by Cersei that night. It turned out that after I left, Mike had given away the child Deb had born. When the child was 4, Mike's mother found him and brought him back home. But Mike stubbornly refused to acknowledge the child. A son unrecognized by his father has yet to have his name changed back. Because he didn't grow up by his father's side, and because many of his habits displeased his grandparents, their son Mike stopped coming home. Gradually, they too grew distant from the child. That child now locks herself in her room every day, avoiding everyone, very reclusive. What about Deb? Isn't she doing anything? Cersei lowered her voice on the other end of the line, as if afraid someone might overhear. "I heard that my brother was actually set up by that woman Deb, that she put something in his drink." According to Cersei, Mike became suspicious after watching the video I gave him. The video was recorded at Deb's house that day. After learning what kind of person Deb was, how could I have gone to see her unprepared? Before long, he actually found the evidence. Mike didn't hold back and had Deb thrown in. I felt a pang of regret upon hearing this, never expecting the matter to end this way. It was just a pity for the child Deb was carrying. Since finding out we had a daughter in common, Mike has been thinking about getting back together. Mike's parents were very supportive too, so they could always see their granddaughter. Mike pulled out all the stops with the tactics he used to chase me back then, coming up with all sorts of tricks. I dodged him every day. Seeing me like this, Cersei suggested that maybe I should just go back. I was tempted as well. But when I discussed it with my daughter, although she agreed, I could see the hesitation in her eyes. I said nothing, just quietly waited for her to speak her true feelings. "Mom, I like it here. Can we not go back?" I asked my daughter, "Do you like the uncle who's always downstairs in our building?" My daughter is smart and sensible, she has never asked me who her father is. "Is he my dad?" A sparkle danced in my daughter's eyes. I replied, "Yes, he is your dad." To make my daughter happy, if it means not going back, then we won't go back. As for the persistent Mike, I still have ways to deal with him. I asked Mike out, wanting to talk to him. He refused me 3 times before finally showing up. We know each other too well. If I hadn't asked him out alone, there might still have been room for reconciliation between us. But now, he knows there's absolutely no chance for us. Not even for the kids can we get back together? Mike asked humbly, and instead, I was angered by him. Mike, I am a person first, and a mother second. I can do anything for my daughter, but only if I do it willingly. Over the years, I rarely thought about the past between Mike and me. I never once recalled his history with Deb. But today, to make Mike give up, I tore open the long frozen wound, exposing the untouchable pain inside. I stirred the coffee in my hand and asked in a very calm voice, Mike, I remember you never drink alcohol handed to you by strangers when you're outside. I looked up at him. But that day, why did you drink the glass Deb gave you? Mike's hand suddenly clenched tightly, his lips trembling involuntarily a few times. After a long pause, Mike closed his eyes in despair. That night, you were attracted to Deb. That was the night he explained to me the truth I least wanted to face. There were women outside who wanted to get close to him, but none had ever succeeded. Even if it was just a fleeting moment of attraction, it still existed. That's why he gave Deb the opportunity. Mike actually knew the reason himself, he just refused to admit it. When he left, Mike cried in front of me once again. But I would never cry because of him again.